Welcome back! This week we have a very special video for you.
Yeah, we're going to take you to the Apple Guy in Ootischenia, one of our favorite local stores, and have a chat with Erran. Can you tell the story of when you started Apple Guy and how you chose this name?
So I was going to school in Edmonton. I was originally a travel agent, although I grew up in a fruit stand and my parents owned in Grand Forks. So it was what I knew, but when I had moved out on my own, I had swore that I would never own my own business. And so, I did travel agency school and then worked in travel agencies for quite a while, and then decided to go back to school and ended up doing anthropology, which, if anybody knows anything about anthropology, doesn't have a lot of career options in Canada, especially with just a bachelor's. So I was done that and looking for something else. And Mom and Dad were just starting to get back into doing farmers markets from their farm in Grand Forks. And they were telling me that, things were going really, really well. And it was looking like it was going to be a super, super viable industry. So I came out, so this would be about 12 or 13 years ago. So I came back and did the basically farmers markets. So I was doing Grand Forks with my parents, and then I was coming out and doing Castlegar, and also setting up for the first year. I think it was 1 year. It might have been a year and a bit. I was selling from a church parking lot, and then moved on to in front of the Sandman Hotel. Did that for about 3 years, and then one of my customers said that there was this place at that time. It was a guy was running it as a little bit of an art gallery studio type thing, and it looked like it was coming up for availability. So went and talked to the council. It's basically the guys that run the museum were the ones that arranged it for me, and went from there. So that would be 9 years ago. And, it was just time to find something invigorating. And at first it was like, okay, well, I'll do this for a few years, but I do really enjoy selling fruit and being involved in the industry and interacting with the farmers in Osoyoos and stuff like that has always been kind of fun. And so, yeah, it's turned out to be a really good decision. And I can't believe that we're already just tickling 10 years of this. It seems like 4 years ago I was still in Edmonton.
How did you choose the name Apple Guy?
So that was where I was set up in Nelson. People would just automatically call me the Apple Guy. And so I was running through names, and at first I wasn't even thinking about it, and I had tried a couple of different things. I think one of my ideas was Fuzzy Peach, which gives you some pretty unusual Google searches, so I had to move away from that one. But put in Apple Guy into the BC registries, and apparently nobody has that name, so at least not registered. So yeah, went with it, and yeah, it's great. So apples are my favorite fruit. I've got ones where, there's certain fruits where I think if anybody gets a chance to have them, they should. Things like my favorite one is Peruvian king fruit. They do grow them in California now, but you have to be exactly the right picking time. They don't transport. It's impossible. So that would be the best tasting fruit I've ever eaten. But apples are they're the perfect. You just give them a quick clean, and then anytime you're on the road, you can just start eating one. Whereas peaches, you know, if you don't like the fuzz of peaches, you have to get that off, and it's all over the place. And the storage is amazing for them. The transport is amazing for them. You know, they're my perfect fruit.
Are there some fruits or vegetables that sell so well that you just can't get enough of them?
I mean, we're consistently able to supply Honeycrisp and stuff like that. That's probably the one. If I could wish to have an apple that goes all season long, it would be Honeycrisp. The ones that, you know, you wish you could sell year round are things that are very seasonably. And I mean, you know, cherry's a great example of this. You know, when I was a kid, you could only get cherries in June. And they'd be a little bit into July and stuff like that, but then it was done and it was over. So you'd be super excited about cherry season. Now cherry season runs from like end of May until September. So it's not as exciting. So like sometimes not having it for a stretch of time makes it more exciting when it does come back around.
What fruit that you sell is most expensive and why?
It would be something that I have to ship in, so citrus or something like that, I think would be technically the most expensive. Berries are probably up there. That's realistically, I think the ones that I've seen the biggest rise in prices for would be cherries, for sure. That's like, from the early days of our store, it went from being like a fruit that you would get the season started with, so you charge nothing for. But yeah, cherries are a lot now. Berries definitely is a big one for local stuff. The most affordable is probably apples. When you look at the amount of time and care that goes into raising them and stuff like that, and the picking and everything to do with that, I think it's hard to beat the prices for them. And hello, how are you doing this morning?
How are you?
I'm good. One fruit leather.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And $12.90. And you can tap on the screen. There we are. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Got your fruit leather? Yes, thanks.
See ya.
Do you think we grow enough fruit in our region?
I think we could always grow more for sure. Yeah, I think it would be marvelous if we could get back to having some orchards around here. It would be amazing. Like, you know, there's all the way up to Caslow used to be a bunch of different sections of orchards and stuff, and they'd have really good, like, you know, I've been in the museum and heard them, reports of them shipping Caslow cherries to California and stuff like that. So yeah, it would be cool to be back into that, absolutely. So yeah, and hopefully we'll start to see more of that move.
Do you think people pay enough attention to where their food is coming from?
I think it's improved a lot. I think that was probably what, when I first came out here more than 10 years, so like that 12 or 13 years ago, I think that was what helped to drive the farmers markets. I think it was, people really are paying a lot more attention now, and they're asking questions, and they, you know, and they're willing to walk away from something if they don't like where it came from, or they don't like that, you know, like in the winter here, it's hard to find an apple from a packing house that doesn't have a wax coating, and for a lot of people that's a non-starter, and I get it.
In an ideal world, how far would you like to travel to bring in fruits and vegetables for our community?
I mean, ultimately, if I know that I'm getting fruit directly from a farmer, I'd be willing to go anywhere on the planet. In an ideal world, ideal transport and everything, transporters, something like that, yeah, I'd go anywhere. But that's the key, is like knowing that I could get it farm fresh, in season, directly from a farmer, that would be the deciding factor for me. Transport's probably one of the biggest costs that I'm facing. I mean, other than wages last year yeah, I mean, especially when you factor in the cost of repairs to the truck for like last year. That was by far the most expensive, and it was a bad year for it. But and I mean, diesel prices are not getting any lower, and recent events will ensure that they will not be going any lower anytime in the next year probably. So yeah, it's a serious thing. So that's why it would be nice to have a local provider for sure.
What are some of your favorite local sources of fruits, nuts, and vegetables?
Grand Forks is where I get my closest things. I really don't have, I've got a couple of people that'll do like blackberries that they'll bring in, but it'll be like 5 trays kind of thing, individual small trays. So I don't really have any large, I mean, I love buying from them. I love getting, you know, my boxes of pears that people will bring in and stuff like that. But as far as like local ones that are able to supply a lot, Loader Potatoes in Grand Forks is a great source. Darcy Road Farms in Grand Forks is another really good one. And my parents, obviously, so Grand Forks Farms. Yeah.
Why do you also sell plant starts and fruit trees?
I got into that, just, nursery was a big part of our business, and it's nice to prop up the early start to the season, get things happening, because there's not a lot of fruit then. But like what I wanted to chase was specifically edibles. So I think there's enough people out there that have got the flowers and stuff like that, and there's always need for the flowers. I mean, you need your pollinators, so. But I really wanted to be, you know, concentrating mostly on bringing trays of tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and edibles, and then the apple trees and stuff like that. There's just, you know, there's a couple good nurseries out there that do bare root, and I'm really strong supporter of the idea of going bare root to start your trees. It's so much better than having like a root bound pot, and you know, it's inexpensive and it's an awesome way to add some locally raised fruit for yourself, and you know, it's fun for kids, and you know, it's the kind of thing that, you know, it'd be great to see people bringing in their fruit every year to Fall Fair and stuff like that. And
What is, in your opinion, one of the most underappreciated fruits that grows well in our climate?
Saskatoon berries. I think that's my number one. I know it's more of a prairie thing, and I know they don't taste as good, but I think they're truly exceptional. And like, I get everybody's love of huckleberries, but Saskatoons are so much easier to find. They're so much lower down. You don't have to go hiking way up into the bush, and there's bushes everywhere, and they grow so well around here. So it's always been my favorite, and I've always been a little bit like, it's weird that nobody really wants them around here. But you know, you can go into a Costco in Saskatoon and buy big berry trays of them. It's so popular. So, I mean, yeah, that's the one that confuses me the most.
Do you think there's a local market for uncommon fruits?
I think that, yes, I think there's always room for that thing. I would, a lot of these things tend to get started as a little bit of a fad type thing. And that's what I worry about, is like, I see like people kind of pushing their idea of all of these antioxidant things and stuff like that, when they don't have really the patience to like bring out something that they're really interested in, get passionate about, and spend the time on developing it. Like a persimmon, I don't know what the growing conditions are, but it's a really interesting fruit that, you know, it's got just a wonderful flavor, and it's fun. I know, like, I'm seeing a lot more people doing figs now. And we can grow a good fig around here. And, you know, it's not going to be the Mediterranean fig, but it's still amazing. So I think there is room. I just think that you have to be very patient. And you have to realize that it's going to take a long time to develop that market. You know, it could take a decade or more.
We are planning to grow a fruit orchard without any use of pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides in a highly diversified orchard. Do you think it is worth pursuing this vision? What do you think will be our biggest challenges?
I think any vision is worth pursuing. You just have to have your, like, how many years do we pursue this for? And how realistic is it for that area? I think your big threats around here, like, I think you can get around issues with rust and stuff like that. There's ways of working your farm without having to use fungicides and so on. There's ways to do your herbiciding without using herbicides, like, you know, use some drought-resistant grasses and stuff like that and get them established, and, you know, maybe do some things like squash plants all the way through and just accept that, you know, you have to kind of push your squash in between the rows or you're not going to be able to get a tractor through. You know, those things are great. With all of our old orchards, I think cottontail moth is going to be the biggest problem. And so that's going to be the struggle, and it's whether or not you can do that just with the traps that doesn't involve then spreading any chemicals and so on, just hormones in the air kind of idea. So yeah, I think it's worth trying. It is not going to be easy. And, you know, certain years are going to be a lot better for fungicides and stuff like that. So yeah, like I said, I think it's worth, anything's worth trying. Just be ready to shift if you need to.
If you have a magic wand and could change one thing about how consumers view fruit, what would it be?
I think the big one is to be a bit more accepting of fruit that isn't perfect. That's the big one. I mean, these bins that we get in, like this one I'm going to be sorting out because it does have an actual rotten spot. But like the only reason that it got kicked off of the line, which is what these bins are, they're called returns, which means they were kicked off of the line. They couldn't be packed into the premium boxes. The only reason that got kicked off is for things like this little mark here, that mark there, and probably this here. These are not marks that are going to rot the apple very quickly. It could take a month in a fridge for this to start breaking down. Stuff like that, yeah, it's a little bit, that's only going to last a week or two. And I mean, it can be cut out, but that's one of the things people don't want to do.
What do you do with fruit that does not sell, and why?
So the ones that are in like just a few smaller marks, I usually, like when I'm telling the staff, it's like between an 1/8 and a 1/4 of the apple, if that's the only rotten spot that's covered. We bag them into $3 bags, so it's a 30-cent. People could use those for cooking, things like that. Everything else that is like fully gone and can't be used for juices or pies or something like that. There's certain fruits when they rot completely. Pig farms, basically. You know, I've got a core group, we're probably 6 or 7 people where we've got phone numbers, or they'll call me on a Friday or something like that and just see where we're at. And we go from there.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
I hope, like in the last 2 years with COVID, I know a lot of people started gardens, and I just hope that these last 2 years weren't too discouraging for them, because the last 2 years have been particularly difficult. We've dealt with last year with the heat waves that were beyond anything any of us have seen. Like, I know people that are 3rd-generation potato farmers that just under 10, 20 acres because there was nothing harvestable. And, you know, the year before that, it was just rain that just didn't stop. And, you know, people were buying 3, 4 times because everything was dying off. You know, there's going to be years that happen like that. And I just hope that they don't lose faith in the idea and, you know, adjust to things that, you know, might be a little bit easier. You know, go with squash for the first few years, go with things that can almost care for themselves and get into it. And I think it'll be something that'll really work for you for your life. So that's all. I like to see people farming a bit more. For this coming growing season, I'm always excited for peach season and nectarine season. This year is definitely going to be one of those ones where I'm looking more with a little bit of trepidation towards like berry season. So I'm worried about what happened with the farmers in the Lower Mainland. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, peach season is always exciting to me, and nectarines. And then just another good apple season.
Thank you so much, Erran.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, that was a great interview.
Yeah.
We are so grateful that Erran took the time to answer our questions. So very much appreciated. And we are really looking forward for when our orchard is grown and we have lots of fruit to share and work with him. And yeah, just from talking to him, it's so obvious that he really cares about the food security, the local food security, and you know, he's combining all these different ideas to help people even grow food. Yeah, and he always cares about like bringing food from local areas as much as possible.
We approached him when we just came last year. We had some excess duck eggs, and we approached him, and he was very open to having our eggs in his store and selling some for us. So. Anytime that you need your fruit and veggies or any other local produce too, so from other farms, support local, support Apple Guy.
Yes.
Yeah, again, it's not just a great local resource, but they're great people too. So it's always important. Yeah.
So yeah, that's it all for this week. So please don't forget to like and subscribe the video and share it, please. And we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Bye.